Aloha kako, and welcome to the West Hawaii Association of Realtors 2020 Mayoral Candidate Interviews. My name is Kristen Moreland, and I chair the Government Affairs Committee for our association. Our committee has extended the opportunity to participate in our interviews to each candidate who filed. While our association does not endorse candidates, we believe it is important to inform our membership and community at large. This is an opportunity for the candidates to answer questions related to real estate and real property rights as they pertain to their platform and policies. The interview will consist of a brief introduction and biography of the candidate, opening statement for 1 minute, and then we'll ask 6 questions. Each will be timed, and the limit is 2 minutes. Then we'll roll into a summary statement by the candidate, and we will conclude. At this time, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about candidate Paul Bryant. Before coming to the Big Island in 1990, he was mainly a cultural journalist covering Australasia. He was also a university instructor, lectured around the world on Japanese ceramic, print, and folk arts, taught Kiswahili to Japanese overseas cooperative volunteers, hosted an overseas NHK radio program on Japanese culture and a Tokyo cable TV program on Japan's contemporary art and artists. He is most proud of 3 highly successful art sales, which benefited programs for the disabled in Japan. Since coming to Hawaii, candidate Bryant taught DOE High School, Japanese, and a 4th grade class. He built and operated a sheep ranch, reopened after New York and Tokyo, a well-respected fine arts gallery, and has been a board member on 4 local nonprofits. Residing in Laupahoehoe, he farms marketable crops and continues writing daily on his 7th book, a memoir entitled A Fool for Love. Welcome, Mr. Bryant, and I'd like to turn the mic over to you to give us an opening statement for 60 seconds. You may have the floor.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I wanted to remind all the members of your association that in the participation level of the United States, throughout the United States, Hawaii falls at the bottom of all 50 states. They're the 50th in participation in voting. And in the state of Hawaii, the Big Island is the lowest of the low. And on the Big Island, there are 4 opportunities to vote, 2 primaries and 2 generals. The 2 primaries are the lowest of the low. In our last election in 2016 for the mayor won with barely enough to scrape his nails. I'm really thinking it's the best thing if you get out there and tell people, vote. Vote in the primary, but vote for somebody that you've researched and know something about. Don't just vote for a name that you remember. Vote for somebody you know and have researched and can perhaps represent you to the best ability. That's my advice for the moment, and hopefully at the end of this, you'll think I might be that person. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate. And now we'll move on to our questions. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here. Question number 1 is on permitting. And in 2015, the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism released a report for housing demand saying the Big Island needed 21,564 additional housing units by 2025. We are nowhere near this goal. Contractors cite one of their biggest challenges is the time the permitting approval process takes. Our current permitting process is complicated by a lack of effective communication and procedures between approving departments. What will you do as mayor to streamline the permitting process and install time limits for review?
Well, I have to go back 30 years when I built my house and tell you that once I had my plans ready, I took them into the planning department. And after the first week, they weren't finished. She told me to come back. I came back the second week, they weren't finished. And I asked for the department head, and the department head came over and said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "I can't build my house." So then what happened was he looked at the plans and he said, "You got some shopping to do? Come back in 2 hours. I'll have them finished for you." That's that's department leadership as far as I'm concerned. We're lacking that at the moment. And the other thing is, have you ever been to Cruisin' Coffee in Hilo? The person that takes your order goes into the kitchen and makes the bloody order, brings it out, takes the payment, and takes care of it. One person walks that plan or walks that order right through their kitchen, their whole process, from making it to wrapping it to bringing it out. Why can't one person be responsible for each incoming plan to get it together and take it one bang, 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 and within 2 weeks perhaps have it done? I don't know why. I mean, somebody has to be responsible, and I think that that's the department head and the way that the department is set up. It's set up wrong at the moment for sure, but it seemed to work 20, 30 years ago. So maybe somebody needs to go back and talk to the department then. And I hope he's still alive, because that was the best thing that happened to me, because I was ready to start the next day. I really thought that it was going to be possible, and we did. So that's my attitude towards the permitting office. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. Question number 2, we're talking again about workforce housing and housing in general. Everyone agrees that there is a need for more affordable housing on the Big Island. Workforce housing brings housing closer to jobs, alleviates traffic congestion, and promotes healthier families and communities. What ideas do you have to develop and support development of workforce housing?
The biggest problem I think that we face in doing any kind of housing here is the cost of the land plus the cost of the housing itself. The only thing I can think of at the moment is there are smaller buildings that could be grouped together, sort of like, oh, how do I say, like a townhouse setting. And but even that, you've got people that have families, and they're not used to having a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom house. So our real problem is making sure that the housing, you can't get the housing closer to the jobs. I don't think you can, at least, but you can alleviate the traffic congestion. And one of the things to do is the traffic can be double laned on one side of the road. It can be a triple lane. I mean, we need to put some money into infrastructure. I think that's the answer there. And the other thing is Helion and the other transportation, multiple seat carriers. I mean, we really have to do that. We have to assist that in becoming reality. There used to be vans that would take 7 or 8 people to work, and then they go and pick them up and bring them back. And then Helion came, and Helion is a disaster anyhow at the moment. It really needs to be retrofitted to be more functional. And I think that that's the way. I don't think you can bring the housing closer to the jobs, unfortunately, unless you move the jobs closer to the housing that's already existing, which is basically Puna or South Kona.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Question number 3, it pertains to zoning, and this is a 2-part question. I'll read both questions and then you can answer them. Number 1, what is your position on short-term vacation rentals in both non-conforming and resort node zoned locations? And then number 2, do you plan to open additional properties for non-conforming use permits?
Short-term vacation rentals, there's a lot of people that have come and bought houses for the specific point of using them for short-term vacation rentals, so to help pay for the mortgage on these very expensive houses often. And they're mostly non-conforming for the location that they're in. I'm not sure what a resort node is, but I'm guessing, in other words, not in competition to resorts, something along that line. But if you have the plans to do a short-term vacation rental and you're outside the law, sorry folks, that just doesn't, it isn't possible. We're not going to accept it. And you can beg and all you want. I don't think you should be in there because you should have thought of that beforehand. And do you plan to open additional properties for non-conforming use permits? I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. We have to look at the amount of rooms we have on island and whether we want to move away from the hotel type resort to allow more people to go out into the bed and breakfast, the Airbnb and that type of thing. I'm not sure. That's a discussion that's going to have to come because the employment on the island is very much focused on workers at the hotels. Now, do we want to make a problem for the employment, or do we want to have people come and rent a house in a wrong place, or an inadequate place, or one where the neighbors are bothered? That's my feeling, is that that's a question that really has to be sat down and talked out in short order by the people that we're most affected by it. So yes, that's it.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Still staying on the topic of short-term vacation rentals, with the COVID-19 restrictions, current STVR owners have not been able to rent their units. In light of this restriction, would your administration offer a complimentary extension to the current expiration of the STVR permits through the end of year 2021?
The STVR is a legal permit, I'm assuming, you know. So these permits, because they're legal permits and they've been prevented from using that space in that way, I don't see any reason why we couldn't make an extension, but only on the legal STVR permits. You know, I mean, like STVR, let's call them STVR, and then the permitted STVR. If they don't have a permit, boy, just shut them down. I'm sorry. You know, you can either follow the law or you can try to flout the law. And if you want to flout the law, then we'll see if we can't make it expensive for you. So my answer.
Okay, thank you. Question number 5, infrastructure improvements. There are many areas of the island that the responsibilities of the county and state overlap, such as roads. If elected, what would you do to propose to coordinate state and county projects?
Similar answer to the fact that I think we need to have a county lobbyist in Honolulu for the ledge. We need to have somebody that speaks for the county all the time, basically, that the legislature is in session or they're working on projects. I think we need to have somebody specifically designated to deal with this problem of the overlap of county and state and what the state is or is not doing. Roads, the state roads, basically the main roads around the county are all state roads, and they're in terrible condition. And then they're also in very dangerous. Like the 3 gulches on Hamakua, 3 times I've been hit by rocks, and one of them took out my car. Luckily, nobody got killed, but that's enough to say to me, something has to be done about the gulches. But you know what I was told? $50 million to fix the gulches, and we haven't had enough people die to make that an important thing to deal with. Well, that's a piss poor answer, I have to say. Excuse my French. So I think that we have to have somebody specifically designated to be the coordinator of state and county projects, and we have to get as many county projects going, especially for the areas that have just terrible, terrible road situation. I can think of down in Puna, there are some potholes that are big enough to swim in. So, I mean, or fish in, I'm not sure. But really, you know, why is this always set aside and everybody says, well, we got to do something now? Well, damn it, do it. You know, I mean, like, get busy and figure out the answers. Thinking outside the box is one of the ways you get the answer, you know, that you might want. So go for it. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Last question, taxation. The primary source of revenue is the collection of real property tax. What other revenue streams do you envision, and how do you plan to balance the budget?
Real property tax in itself is poorly managed, period. I mean, that's the answer. I can think of one house within spitting distance of my property here in Lapahoehoe that is registered as a church, and yet it's a rental. I don't know how many pastors come and rent a church for weeks at a time, but that's an idea. Why do we have all these designations like the forest that was planted out on the Hamakua Coast is a good example. That forest is basically useless land because the whole project went south and the land was never the forest was never taken care of. Because it was never taken care of, it's not a viable business operation. And because of that, it should be taxed at the same base as my words left. An orchard. An orchard is $4,000 a year per acre, $4,000 evaluation per acre each year. Crops are $4,000 an acre per each year, and pastures are $420 an acre. Little bit out of whack, you know. So I think we need to transition that so that if we're going to work a little bit more on crops for the benefit of the populace, then we have to bring that into reality as opposed to the wasted income from grandfathered pasture. This is not Parker Ranch anymore. This is today. We have to stop thinking about yesterday as being something we have to continually deal with. You know, we don't need to deal with it. We need somebody to look at property and say, you know, this property is not being used in the proper way. When they came out and told me because I didn't have pasture anymore and that my taxes were going up, I was shocked, and especially how big it went up from $420 to $4,000 per acre. I was totally shocked.
That concludes your time for this question.
Well, those are the 6 questions, and thank you very much, Mr. Bryant. I appreciate you answering those and taking the time to meet with us.
At this time, we invite you to give your summary statement, candidate Bryant. You'll have 30 seconds.
Again, I just want to say thank you very much for listening to me, but please take to heart the whole idea that everybody you talk to needs to be registered, and soon the registry is over. I think it comes up, you know, next month or this coming month in July, the 9th perhaps. And you need to be registered, and you need to vote, and you need to know who you're voting for. Just don't. It's not throwing darts at a board. It's knowing who you vote for. Vote for somebody that's going to do something and not be rehashing the same crap all over again. I'm a little bit direct on things. Apologize if I've upset anybody, but vote for somebody you know, not for just anybody. Thank you.
Mahalo. Mahalo, candidate Bryant and interviewer Dan Palomino, for your willingness to participate in our program. We wish you the best on election day. And to our audience, mahalo for tuning in. Don't forget that July 9th is the last day to register to vote in Hawaii. Primary elections will be, the ballots will be delivered on July 21st for the August 8th primary. And the general election will be on November 3rd. Mahalo for watching, and please do vote. Aloha.